Yep.
So hi, Sara.
Hi.
How is live in Sweden?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're kind of in a COVID-19 phase now, so it's a lot of focus on Sweden in the news internationally and here, because we have a different strategy, obviously. But yeah, it's a very interesting time, I think, for all of us in the digital industry. If we kind of leave the corona on the side, which is not a nice thing for people, but it's the digital is really the only place where you can be active and social. And what if we were in lockdown and didn't have internet? That's
Yeah,
kind of where I'm thinking that how would I communicate with my parents? And my sister works in the elderly care. I wouldn't see her at all. So it's a very interesting time.
yeah. I was many years ago. I was studying electronics, and I really wanted my grandfather and grandmother to have a video player. Like I wanted them to watch videos because in Iceland we had one TV station, but you could rent videos. So I went and I got them a video player.
Yeah.
And I gave them there's a moral to the story. Hold on.
Yeah.
And so I was teaching them how to work this, and they said like, this is too complicated. And I was like, no, just put the cassette in here, press this here. It should start automatically. If you see that the movie is at the end, then you have to press this button, but then it would rewind. I think they never watched any movie after I left. That's really courteous to me. But interestingly enough, during that conversation, so I had they invited me for a dinner, and my grandmother asked me what I did, what I was doing, and I was just trying to explain to them, because I had then moved from electronics and that kind of more kind of technical stuff into marketing and in the internet, and I was trying to explain to them how it worked, and for the life of me, I could not make them understand. So I ended up just telling them I was repairing phones. But my grandfather then told me a story that when they were getting to know each other, they were from northwest of Iceland, and I think my grandfather was in Denmark or something at the time, and they were and there was a war about to break out, something like that, and they were sending letters to each other, and sometimes the letters took 3 months to arrive. And they were heavily in love, of course. They were building the relationship. And sometimes the letters came in wrong order. So the letter that actually started a month later came before the other one letter, so it was a little bit kind of tricky. So to your point, and I'm just sorry for getting this long story to it, is that yes, absolutely. And people that we take it so for granted. And there are stories like this. It was in the news in Iceland now, that the post from the US is being sent by ship.
Yeah.
Now a letter to arrive from the US to Iceland takes maybe a week or month.
Yeah, that's what it used to be. So exactly. And I think you're touching on an interesting point there, because I think I'm saying, I think there's something good that's going to come out of this too, that we might learn to use the digital space differently. And for, maybe we don't have to, pay 300 kronas to fly to Spain and meet every time. Or do we have to go to a cheap weekend, or do we have to, maybe we should save up on something. Maybe we should have something to look forward to. It's been a bit too easy for this generation.
Yeah.
Everything comes, to you, but now you have to work for it. And there are threats, like a small tiny virus that you can't even see is a bigger warfare basically to us than anything we've ever seen in Europe anyway. So I think there are things like this, and I hear stories from, obviously in Sweden we haven't had a war to even talk about, so we're a bit blessed in that world. But I see people that have gone through communism, and they've been through other things like this. They're like, well, this is just another thing that we have to go through.
Yeah.
They see it in different eyes than we do. and most people here are panicking over this.
I have a good friend, a Swedish girl that used to work with me when I came here to Norway and became a partner in a creative agency, and she worked with me on my team.
Mm.
And she was born. She's half Mauritian and half Peruvian from Peru.
Yeah.
She was born in Russia. She was raised in Sweden and lives in Norway.
Mm.
And one of the things that she said to me actually, and we spoke a lot together, and we still do, was that she would actually be willing to die for the infrastructure that we have here in the Nordics. And again, so and we have to remind ourselves sometimes, and this is a really good reminder of the infrastructure that we have. And we are pampered. We are a little bit spoiled because of the good things we have, and we tend to focus on getting things. So small nuances will become annoying, and we start to complain about stuff that actually doesn't make sense.
I mean, exactly, and we've been driving the global economy forward and buying as cheap as we can and bringing in goods from China and Vietnam and things to kind of cut prices, and you know, we kind of we're driven this ourselves in a way. So it's a good learning for humanity. I think.
At least we should think about this, and I'm blessed with several kids, and I have 3 girls here with me in Norway, and then I have 2 boys in Iceland, and we talk a lot about this, specifically the girls, specifically the 2 youngest. It's clear that they're noticing this and they're thinking about this, and they are like, for example, my youngest one asks me now, like, if we serve meat, she asked me, did this used to live? And we say yes, and then she says, then I don't want to eat it because this used to live. And then we're trying to explain to her, like, okay, we get it, but like, do you wanna? But these 8 years old, and this is like I'm not sure I was that clever when I was 8 years old.
Exactly. No, it's not at all that complicated, but now because they have the information, they just suck it all in. And I see our son is 10 now, and he knows all about, he told me the other day how to wash my hands properly. So I was like, well, okay, that's something good about this. You know, before we used to fight that washing hands after a meal or before the meal is actually important. But now it's turning around.
but again, it goes. But then again, there's a counter. There's a argument that could kind of counteract what we were saying now, is that, like you shouldn't travel. You were saying you shouldn't travel. Maybe you should think about when you travel and how to travel. Is it important and so on? Is it like a bucket list thing, or versus just, do I have to do it? Am I going to London to shop, which actually cheaper in the stores, but I'm paying for the flight and the hotel, so it isn't that much cheaper in the end.
No.
But then again, you might take a trip to somewhere and meet somebody and fall in love, and so then it's that side. So it's a part of the destiny of who we are. We are a global nation, but maybe, as you said, we can be a little bit more clever about it. And then the question is, what did we miss if we didn't do it?
Agree. I would have probably missed a lot.
How is Mr. Clifton? Is he?
He's fine. It's all good. We work together now. We have 2 kind of separate parts of our where I kind of run the consultancy side, and he works more on developing software. But it's really interesting. I said, you know, we talked a lot because he's from the UK as well, and we have people in lockdown there, our family, and it's very different strategies on this. But obviously, we can have a chat about the different cultures, how we react to media, how influenced we actually are about the media and what we read and what we're being fed with, and all of the fake news in the world. So I think it's a
so hold on. Fake news as in Trump's fake news, or fake news as in?
Well, there's all kinds of it out there. Like I said, even about Sweden's strategy. Oh, they're doing nothing. They're just sitting around in bars drinking. You know, it's like, well, not really. But obviously, then there is, yeah, like the different presidents doing some odd, should we say,
Things.
taking some odd standpoints or medical uh, expertise.
Yeah.
But I think it's, now without the internet and without democracy being so open that we can share with each other, it's obviously both good and bad in this, but I must believe anyway that we are on our way to kill that. I mean, I can see the younger generation already asking, where did that information come from? What's the source? And also to our own situation, because we run our business together and we live here, we live in the countryside where we can be outside a lot, and we can, share workload, and so I feel, blessed in that way that we were not that affected by this. And it's a good lifestyle. I mean, I worked a lot, as you know, globally before, and I don't really miss all the travel I used to do, and living in hotels and airplanes. Obviously interesting to see people in different countries, but especially when you have young children, there's no other place I'd rather be than kind of seeing them growing up. So every time I had a conflict with that when I started having kids. It's like, no, I don't really want to go. I want to be here, So obviously I'd like to clone myself and be able to do both, but it's not possible.
But it's interesting actually that, as you said, that so two things. Before I go into the travel stuff, so what are you doing, guys? What is your consultancy agency about? Are you like what is it that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so when I left NEO, or Global Strategy was acquired by NEO, and then I worked there for a while, or Ogilvy, NEO at Ogilvy. Then I founded a company called Search Integration, and the basis of that was that I always felt that SEO and analytics was kind of, it's never integrated. It's always some agency that's going to tell you what to do and try to sell you a retainer. And then you never get out of that. It's an ongoing story that you never kind of get the knowledge into, So I felt that Search Integration should be driven by me and a smaller team of experts, where we bring it in-house into the processes that you have. So I've driven that now for 12 years. And it's a nice way if you're not so many, so we're 7 consultants which I've kind of handpicked, then we can work very tight together. We can share the same cases and stories, but it's also nice to be able to not have a team of 100 people to kind of feed, so we can pick clients that really want to do this. They really want to work with SEO and analytics in-house, and they want to lift and grow with us as a partner.
So your goal is basically to be with them until you can say, you're all grown up now, looking good.
Yeah, and obviously to my favor as a consultant, that never happens in our industry. You're never kind of done with SEO, because new things come along and new challenges come along. But what I want them to do is to be able to do all of the basic stuff. When they write content, they should know how to write SEO friendly content. I shouldn't tell them that story every month. Again and again. And also that made it very boring for me to say the same thing over and over again. So we integrate these parts, and then obviously sometimes people leave, and then you have to create a process that can stay, so that it's documented. It sits in the walls rather than in the people. And then I can take them to the next step. So what if we did video? What if we now did this? So it's more of a ladder, and some clients we've had, for 5, 6, 7 years, but we're doing different things.
Yeah. How how do you see the benefits? Like, can you give me a sample of a benefit that a company that goes on this journey and realizes the potential that SEO has,
Mm.
and kind of has this eureka moment? Oh shit, why didn't we start this earlier? And then kind of realizes, okay, we need to be investing in this constantly. Like, can
Yeah.
you give me a sample of that type of a process?
I think it's, you know, when they start realizing, obviously easier when you drive e-commerce or things like this, but when you see it as a okay, what if I now change my headlines, or I move this you know, the structure around with my content, or I create internal linking, and they see that kind of data coming in, like, oh, what a shift that made, or I bumped up 5 positions, you know, now I'm at the top, and then they can do the business calculation to it. Then it becomes more integrated by natural, sort of, in the organization, because the managers start to realize, but you have to have senior buy-in.
Yeah. And how do you get to that? Like, I've been doing SEO for the past 25 years, plus minus. And my background is technology. So I come at it from a technology point of view. Yeah. And in the beginning, I was basically put in front of the IT guys. So I might walked into a big client. Yeah. And I had the marketing people in front of me. And suddenly, like, when they realized I was talking about SEO, they go, hey, hold on. We're going to get these guys in. And then they walked out, and these IT guys came in. Yeah. And this is like 1999, 2002, even up to 2010 and closer. Still today, there's a challenge. Yeah. But what is it that you do to get that buy-in from the upper management? Mm-hmm. That's crucial.
Yeah, it is definitely crucial. And I think it's sometimes you have to start with showing a case, so you're not kind of eating the whole elephant at once. You're measuring where we were now, and then, okay, we did these smaller things. How much did that cost? Yeah. You know, it was just, you know, it took us 4 hours to do, and here you are, you know, that they can see the leap, and then you might get more funding to the different projects. But I think the best clients I have are the ones that failed a migration. Yeah. So that completely went, you know, out of the index, almost invisible. Yeah. And then they call you up and go, you know, everything's gone wrong. And, you know, and I know you can probably feel the pain and the sort of sweat they have. And then you go, oh, you know, now and that's what I told you not to do, these redirects, and you know.
Yeah. And that actually, so one of the things that I did in 2008 plus minus, I was in the UK quite a lot. So I worked with a creative agency in the UK, or that of creative agencies. And I realized my lingo was just completely off. Like, I was like, I had kind of the curse of knowledge. Like, it comes so easy to you, know so exactly what has to happen. Yeah. When you explain it, it sounds like you're like blur, blur, blur. So I realized, and I was sitting. I kind of had this eureka moment. I was sitting in a room where they were pitching. I think this was Hitachi. They were talking to this chief marketing officer for Europe, and the linguistics that they were using was like, Jesus, I'm completely off here. Yeah. So I started adapting to that. And then in 2013 or 13 actually, and then moved here into Norway in 2014. I became a partner in an agency here in Norway, which is a part of an agency called Fossmann and Bodenfoss in Sweden. So the agency was SMFB, and the FB in SMFB was Fossmann and Bodenfoss. Yeah. So then I started working in Göteborg, and I got in what would be English in Göteborg,
Gothenburg?
Gothenburg, yeah, sorry. Yeah. And sorry, it's like, I'm speaking Scandinavian every day. So, and then I started to, like, we did this project with Visit Sweden, some stuff with Volvo, and so on and so on. And I realized that for me to be able to sell in SEO, which still is my passion, I had to change my linguistics. I basically had to change the way I speak. Because if I wanted to speak to the upper management, so the people on the C-level, I needed to talk more from a strategical level. I just basically need to talk differently.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that there's a lot of, especially like technical SEOs, do it wrong, that you don't have you haven't kind of thought about who goes into what meeting.
Yeah.
So you should always have a person that can take those discussions. And my role here, apart from sometimes being, involved in some projects, is to try to explain that as easy as I can. That's my role as a CEO in the company, but it's also my role to clients to say, where are you? Why are you investing in this? Why is this important? And I think because I come from a marketing background, I can compare it with other activities that they do and say, how does this fit into your mix? What if people search for you and you're not there? Do you want to give that traffic away to your competitors? Or, and if I bring in like a document, PowerPoint about 301 redirects and why you failed your migration, they're like, well, I don't need to know. Just tell me what to do. I don't want to buy a bag of problems. I want to buy the solution. So I think you're right. I think it's something that SEOs that are bogged into the daily work have a difficult time kind of getting the helicopter view.
Yeah. And how and in your company now that Brian is with you there, how do you complement each other? Because his background is kind of analytical technology, while yours is more marketing, and he's a very and you both are actually quite strategical thinking. He is the guy that basically moved Google Analytics from being urgent to being Google Analytics, one of them at least. So how do you complement each other? Like, how do you work together on this? And
I mean, we're definitely different in our, like for instance, that Brian is very much a detail focused person and understands everything about. I would say he's my go-to person for everything in detail about analytics, and anything about privacy and data quality. He's a very heavy expert in, and very much obviously involved in the cookie consent now, then GDPR, and are we doing this right? But I think, where we really kind of connect is business-wise is that I can say, okay, what does that mean for your brand if you don't obey people's right to be forgotten? What if you send out retargeting to people that don't want retargeting? How does that connect to the marketing and brand side of it? So I think we can swing in a debate and help bring two sides of the coin together, which is affecting the whole of the business, obviously. And I think that's where upper management understands that, oh my God, I can't do this to my users. I really hate retargeting myself, they say, but then they keep buying it. So you have to become, who we are privately as people is actually the same as you should be driving your business.
I think that I changed my background, by the way.
I saw that.
So stubborn on vision, flexible on details. That's very much. But I think that's the same as Jeff Bezos has for Amazon, I think. But yes, another interesting thing, and it just ties into what you're saying about what Brian is doing, is that, like, still today, it's 2020, and still today, companies haven't gotten GDPR right.
No.
They are either kind of under utilizing it, or they are overutilizing it, or they are not. And there might be, if you ask them a question like, well, how if somebody contacts you and wants to be forgotten, how do you prove that? And they say, like, we'll just kind of delete them from here and there. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but you have 13 different tracking codes on your website. How do you delete them from everything? And how do you know that you've deleted them? What is the, like, and then they realize, shit, like, we've only been thinking about Google Analytics, but actually all these other tools have data. How do you, and
they don't even know what they're tracking.
They don't even know. and even the data manager that is supposed to be the person who's supposed to be the owner of this within the company goes like,
It's a good chat to have now, because I think we are in a curve of a reset. I think it's actually Brian that said that the other day. It's a good reset for for GDPR is, but also COVID in a way, because now we have to take a step back and say, what's important? What are my unique selling points? How do I keep people on my website? Why should they be investing in my brand or, signing up for something, not just kind of driving them for the sake of a competition and selling short time sales and getting new customers in all the time? It's how do I keep a good target audience, coming back to me by its own will, and not focusing so much about all this. I think people are getting too, or have been anyway, very focused on personalization and retargeting and how do we kind of drive business as fast as possible. Whereas now it's down to, do you have a qualitative product? All the 4 P's of marketing comes back, the price and the promotion and the product, and, keeping your placement correct in that sense, that you don't try to get every customer out there, get the right ones.
I work a lot in B2B, so and I really like that. So I'm building marketing automation systems on top of other marketing automation systems, and one of the things which is really, so B2C companies most of the time get this, but B2B companies are kind of clueless when it comes to this. So I ask them 3 questions: what do you do, how do you do it, and why do you do it? And they can often, all the time answer the questions like, what do I do and how do I do it? And then the question is, why? Why do you do it? And they might be able to answer that up to a point. So because we like creating this product. And then I flip that question and say, okay, take that why and ask, why should people care? So why should your clients care? So it goes back to what you were saying, is that how do you build the repetitive clients? Like, why do they care about you? Are they coming in for the price? Great. But price is never sustainable, because if you're always running on low price, then where's the margin? So you have to build up the emotional connection between you and the client. And that actually creates that tie that builds up that momentum. So if you're clever at explaining the what and the how, but you don't know how to address the why, then it's not sustainable.
But I think there's a lot of companies out there that didn't start with saying, what's my unique selling point? Why should I be in business and not someone else? And then, because obviously in our own industry, we could say you could pick any SEO agency. Why pick yours? And I have to be able to answer, well, I think, the story to how we bring to help your organization grow is my methodology. I don't have any risk capital. I don't, my goal is not to increase sales every month. My goal is to keep clients happy and keep them for a long time, so I don't have to get new ones.
but that brings the humanity to it. Is that you have been long enough on the side of big corporations to realize that there's actually a twist to people just wanting to work with other people. People buy from people.
Exactly. And I think anyone, if you're in B2B or B2C, you got to know when you hit a website, the same thing as you go into a store, I want to be here. Don't the whole old school of don't make me think by this book that was written a long time ago is it's still that, people have made it so bloody complicated that it's like, well, why do I have to try to find the answer to everything? It should be right there.
Exactly.
So there's so many bad websites out there that we could spend a lifetime just talking about that.
Talking about books, I was talking to Bill Hunt, a mutual friend of ours, who actually is probably one. And I said to him, I'm saying to you all now also, is that one of the reasons why I'm doing this here, and I get to the Bill Hunt story, is because all the people I met, more or less everybody I met in this industry, are super nice people. They are willing to talk like this here, like you're giving me your time and you're opening up. It's nothing that we're like, and you're telling stuff, which is brilliant. And this is, to me, is our industry in a nutshell. Like, we are the group of super helpful people. I remember when we were doing Sambo, like everybody's willing to help, like just and that's one of the things which struck me. I've spoken in 20 countries at some 100 conferences, and every time where I go, I get friends, brilliant people, which I try to keep up with. Bill Hunt is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Bill Hunt, I met, I think, in Sweden actually, in 2006 or something like that, SCS.
Yeah.
And then I think I met you there also at the same conference.
Yeah, he was my boss at the time.
At the time, yeah, okay, but he, brilliant guy, and I still use the missed opportunity matrix today from his book. I love that. Just being able to showcase a missed opportunity is like, okay, dude, if you don't spend this, you will lose this.
Yeah, exactly.
And we spoke about that in our interview earlier, and it's just like, and it's these and you talk about the, don't make me think, these are the fundamentals, which we just like we get lost in the shiny bright objects.
Yeah.
And we just basically forget the fundamentals.
And I think you're right. I mean, that's the nice thing about SEO, that it's always been about writing good content with the searcher's intent in mind, that, you know, that am I answering the questions that they have when they search? Whether it's voice search or video search, it's the same, you know, you still have to answer the question. And I think we've been working so long with this now that we're kind of saying, well, when all these shiny objects come along, you know, I remember when I started working with this, I was in a media agency, and I was saying, hey, there's something called SEO here. They're like, well, you know, whatever. What's that? Yeah, well, Google, I've heard of Google. Yeah, you know, they've just kind of launched, and we were doing dynamic HTML and, you know, burritos flying over your screen, and it was all, you know.
Where were you working?
Yeah. It was yeah, you know, you had a McDonald's burrito coming in and then going out. It's like, why would anyone click on that? But it's that kind of, you know, it was so cool that we could do it, you know. It was all, I got out in 99 before this curve came along, but I had my internship in an SEO company in New York, luckily. And she kind of said, well, you know, pull marketing, that's going to be, you know, where people want to be. So I was fighting my corner, and eventually my boss in Stockholm listened to me and said, hey, there's some guys in the US and UK doing what you're kind of preaching. And said, okay, let me go and find them. And Bill was one of them, working for Outrider in the States. And then obviously we came up being a group afterwards. But seeing, what kind of dawned on me is that some of these advertising and agencies and media agencies, they were making so much money on this, that when I came and said, oh, I just want to kind of sell something for, you know, maybe 10,000 euros. And they're like, well, that's no money. I can't live on that. You know, I have a big fashionable office in Stureplan in Stockholm. You know, I how's that going to pay my rent? And when I kind of, you know, the coin dropped on me, I realized, well, okay, my moral here, or me working with trying to understand people's behavior online and, you know, being in the right position when they search, is just not going to fit in here.
But doesn't it tie into what we were speaking about earlier before we started recording this, is that one of the learnings we're going to get out of this, and you spoke about I'm not sure we talked about during the recording, but all the stuff we're doing, because you and I have both worked for large corporations, is that we're paying for overhead. And when you pay for overhead, 70% of the money just goes into overhead. 30% goes into salary or whatever. I don't know. Could be plus minus. But when you start a kind of an organic company or a company that is more organically built, like the one that you are running, and similar to what I'm trying to do now, is that the overhead is so little that actually you're paying for the work.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of our unique selling points to the client, that you're not paying for a fancy office here. You're paying for me having good people and finding the right people that can help you. So I think you're right about that. And one of the things I saw, I mean, there are obviously a need for good creative content and that too. So it's not against that. It's just that it might have to be a bit more balanced in how we work. And I think some of the things I realized in Ogilvy, that most part of my time was spent reporting P&Ls and where my time was spent. And it's like, well, I'm kind of living and breathing to be close to the client and getting action and getting, the ROI in place. And if 50% of my time has to go into reporting, then you're losing who I should be and where I can make revenue.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you want revenue or do you want me to report time?
And on top of that, the challenge is also the political issues within the company, because you're always trying to fight for a position, whether you're consciously doing it or not.
Yeah,
it's always this constant fight for position, for recognition, and it is this strange culture which actually can be quite terminating, or it's not
tiring.
So one thing which came up between me and Hunt is that Hunt has 2 kids, and a motor going him, of course. He doesn't have them all alone. His wife has
and a big dog, I think.
And a big dog, who snores a lot.
Yeah.
And they both went into the industry. And my eldest actually is one of the best paid PPC guys that I know. He's brilliant in what he does. And how do you see it with you and Mr. Clifton? Are you trying to train up intern there?
They're so young yet that we don't really know. We have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. Where the 5-year-old is really aspiring to be a boss at home anyway. She's the one trying to control everyone.
Well, it is the role of the youngest to control.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see where she ends up, but she's a clever girl, but very.
What I did was that what I've been trying to do with my son actually just accidentally became an AdWords guy. He started to be a carpenter, and more or less all of my family is artists, or like they do stuff with their hands, like. And that's why I became an electrician or electronics guy, because I wanted to record music. But then I discovered the internet, and the rest is history. And this is 2008, so he lost his job, and like he couldn't get any job as a carpenter. And so I said, okay, why don't I just train you to be an SEO? So I gave him 2 tips. I said to him, if you are asked a question, and always say it's my experience, or say our experience. Don't say my, say our experience, because then we have the experience of the collective, and then you can call me in and I can tackle it. Then say the second one was to talk about his feelings. I have a feeling this might not work, because you can't challenge feelings, because that's his feelings. And then the third one was that which actually he used quite wisely, was let me think about this, I'll get back to you. So never try to kind of get corners.
No, exactly.
And what he told me, interesting now that he's been doing this for 15 years, he notices that he uses the experience more than he uses the I'll get back to you, because now he does know far more. And because he's worked with large enterprises in Berlin and so on, and now he's back in Iceland. So it's development. But with the youngest one, I am trying to teach her how to be a programmer. And I bought these Lego things, so she can program the movement of a robot. And I can see that they're doing the same in school. So they're teaching them logic. So the logic behind programming, building cases and if sentences and so on. So they're moving things around by basically. So that maybe is where they will end up.
I think it's the focus has to be on creating good people, and I think that's what you're doing. You kind of, all of that doesn't just tie into SEO. Whether he picks a different route, it's about being honest and trying to not kind of playing a story about something you don't know. And I see that with my kids today as well, but in comparing with when I grew up, like you're saying, challenging the story. Is this true or not? Or, what's the facts behind that? Did other people say it? Or, they're going to have a different experience to what we have. But I think a key point from where myself was, I was studying, marketing, and then the internet came along.
Yeah.
And someone just said, well, maybe you should go, to go for, an internship in Coca-Cola. And I was like, nah, I just have to boil coffee. I want to learn something new.
Yeah.
And my parents come from running their own business here. So I'm kind of grown up in entrepreneurship. So I thought, no, I want to get to the core of, how I can learn more. And it ended up being me, her cat, sat in her apartment in New York City at 34th Street somewhere. And then she had to go to this conference. And she said, oh, could you look after the flat and the cat and the business while I'm away? And I was 18 years old, 19 or something. And I was thinking, oh my God, but okay, I can do, back in the day it was meta keywords and some description tags. So I sat there, looked after her cat and did that. And then I came back to Sweden and I had, the .com time just started happening. And they looked at my resume and said, oh, you've done some digital stuff, would you like to come to an interview? So one thing I've learned is it's all about timing. The other thing is if there's what we say in Sweden, like ett bananskal, there's something that comes on the side, you got to be alert to that, don't be afraid of new things, try it and see where that takes you. And same thing for Brian. I think he was a scientist. He has a PhD in chemistry.
Doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Clifton, and I think he kind of discovered, well, do I want to wait for research and results for years? Or here's the internet where it's going to give you data immediately.
Yeah.
That looks interesting.
And to your point, I've written 2 books.
Yeah.
I actually written 3 books. One of them, I just distribute the PDF chapters from the third one. But so the first one is in Icelandic called Internet Marketing. I have a degree in electronics. I wrote it with a guy with a degree in economics.
Yeah.
There hasn't been written book in Icelandic yet about internet marketing. Okay, and then I wrote a book with Ann Kennedy, which is called Global Search Engine Marketing. And again, I have a degree in electronics, and she has a degree in PR, I think.
Yeah.
There's nobody still that has addressed that. We tried to write a book about global social media marketing, but it was just too complicated. So we just gave out the stuff we've done. But again, to timing, it's just about timing. Like that you're able, a guy with a degree in electronics, to have written 2 books about a topic that there should be professors out there. There should be people with proper degrees that have written those books. But
you happened to be there at that time when it all took off. Yeah.
But my eureka moment, or my epiphany, I think that's the word, epiphany, in all of this, was that when I was in the UK, I got a chance to pitch a project in Oxford, Cambridge, sorry. Was it Oxford? Either way, it was either of them. And I walked into a house, an old building, and I walked into that building, and I noticed that everything was glass or plastic. So I couldn't touch the walls. I couldn't touch the original doors. There was a sliding glass door. And I walked, and I was sitting there waiting for some guy. I think he was the digital marketing manager for Cambridge, let's say that, or Oxford actually. And this Puffleby guy, he actually looked like he was a name from Harry Potter, like it was crazy. Harry Potter actually didn't exist at the time.
Exactly.
Puffleby or something. So we walked in, and I was asking him about these walls, and he said that this house was actually built in 1300 and something, so it's very protected, so you can't do anything. And I was sitting with him in a room, and it dawned on me I might be sitting in a room where Johannes Gutenberg sat, trying to sell this new wonderful technology called movable print. And here I was trying to sell him internet marketing. And then I realized, shit, I'm a miniature Gutenberg. So, and in reality, we all are. You and I and Brian and all these guys we're all miniature Gutenberg, trying to invent an industry that still is moving.
Yeah, and that's why we have to fight our corner. So we feel that we've been in this industry for a long time, but if you look at it from a longer perspective, we're just in the beginning. And like you're saying, I think the next generations will probably cherish on that, like your son working with this now, or Bill's kids, they can all kind of say, but my dad did this. So that's all old stuff. Let's build on the new on top of that. But we didn't have that. We had to kind of invent the wheel, or test links here and there. And, we had, I don't know, I was finding myself fighting spam in this country a lot, where people do a lot of black hat techniques. There's not a lot of talk about that anymore, still being used, I'm sure. But people have kind of realized that, we have to be visible and not just going up and down and in the rankings. So
sustainability.
It's a bit like, I wish I was younger so I could kind of live through this phase a bit more, because it's going to be so interesting to see where we're going to end up.
So when I grow old and my grandkids come with a new type of VCR or a DVD, or I don't know what it would be, and like trying to teach me, I go like, what the? I read a book. But before we finish, couple of tips for those out there now from you dealing with this strange situation we're in. Like, what would you do if you were a marketing manager of a company and you were trying to use your workforce to its optimal locked at home, not in Sweden but in Norway, for example? What would you do? What do you recommend?
In the marketing department.
So if the marketing manager is like, okay, I need to utilize my team now, they're home, I want them to do something, what would be the kind of things that you want them to do?
Well, if you hadn't kind of made the real digital shift until now, this is the time to, I think, do it. I think it's important to, at the stage of, where people are running around trying to figure out what to do, and might not even have a job. You have to say, okay, who are my most important customers? And go back to the basics again of like talking to them and understanding what would they need. Can I grow with them? Can I help them in the shape or form? And try to understand their reality. What's the core here? And stop all of these, potential driven initiatives where we kind of drive engagement on levels which is very far out in our circle. So if we can work more with the pull strategy of understanding, are there similarities? Are there other people that are like my core industry? Can I reach out to them with the same story? And maybe build a story around them to say, we have 3 customers that's doing this with us. Would you like to try? Because you already have good cases in them. So why not build on that? I think that's where people go lost now, that they're trying to find new ones all the time. And obviously, if you can set up some kind of e-commerce to try to get people to shop in a different way, or help them get home delivery when you didn't have this before, this is the time to test it. Are they willing? Because now they're willing to buy stuff online more than before.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with you there. Sarah, it's been brilliant. Thank you. Give Dr. Brian Clifton a virtual hug from me. I know he loves it, but he says he does say he hates it. He's the only person. He's the only person in the world that said, "Kristjan, don't hug me." It's like I walked to him and said, "Kristjan, don't hug me."
It's because you're so strong. I think he's not used to that.
Well, I think he has. Okay, but okay. But give him a hug from me and say hi to your kids. I think I've met the youngest one, the oldest one, once or twice. But the youngest one I haven't met. I
think last time I was in Iceland, she was in my belly. So you didn't quite meet her.
Oh, that's true.
But she was there. She was in Iceland.
Are you close to Stockholm?
I'm in the southern part, so off the border of Copenhagen. So I'm in Helsingborg. Yeah.
Well, I drive. My father lives in down by the border in Germany, so I drive regularly down there just to say hi to him. Takes me 10 hours from Oslo down.
Yeah.
So I'll come and say hi. And Mikkel de Mip also. complains that I don't drop by when I'm driving past. So I have to do. And this is actually the reason why I did this, is that I've been like, the Reykjavik Internet Marketing Conference is not going to be held in its form this year.
No.
So what I'm doing now basically is that I'm kind of reaching out to all my friends and colleagues in the industry and kind of just talking a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you feel free to come by and give him a real hug.
Well, at least I will take his hand with rubber gloves on, so that I won't give him anything.
If you give him some Black Death, I'm sure he's going to be okay.
We'll be merry and happy. Cool. Take care, and I'll follow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care to you, Kristjan.
Bye bye.
Have a good one.
You too.
Wash your hands.